hands on your head. Turn the rap music off and step away from the stereo. Put the rap album down. The MC Hammer alone, turn it off.
Guns don't kill people, rappers do. Ask any politician and they tell you it's true. It's a fact, music makes you violent. Like Michael Jackson telling little Timmy to be silent. You don't believe me? Here's my hype. Offer me the record and I'll show you the type of criminal this rap shit is breathing. It's a fact that MC Hammer left me bleeding. Vanilla Ice made my mother say fuck. If I stuck with UB40 then I would have been in luck, but I didn't. I got it wrong. Cypress fucking Hill told me to make a fucking bomb, but I stacked it. I bought another tape. The power by snap made my cock and balls ache. So remember, kids, to the head double tap.
Around 2000, it started to change when, you know, the How Can We Be Down started to come in, and that whole hip hop scene started to come in. And it's not what the hip hop did; it's what they brought. It's what it brought in. The people that came here to South Beach to watch the hip hop shows were just different. You know, you would have your women that all of a sudden would walk around freely, that couldn't walk, and would be, you know, attacked and get, you know, manhandled. And it's just not what it used to be.
I ran for city commission in 2005, and one of the issues during that race was the hip hop weekend. And you know, it's like preparing for a hurricane. I used to work off duty at Publix and stuff, and people would come in for the hurricane and they'd load up water and food and all that stuff because they planned on being inside for a given period of time. Well, same thing happened before hip hop weekend. These people would come in and they'd load up their grocery carts and prepare to stay in their houses through the weekend until Memorial Day was over. So that was an impact that it had, and these people wanted the city to do something about it.
I believe it becomes a problem when you are a resident of your hometown, and if you feel you need to leave your hometown and travel elsewhere, or that you can't leave your home because of any event that comes into your town, then it's an issue worth talking about.
Those years just painted a different picture as far as the groups, the clubs started changing to cater to that crowd. And throughout, it led to a more violent time immediately after that. For several years, till recently, they've started to get a grip of the Memorial Day weekend, and the crowds are improving accordingly throughout the year.
Miami Hip Hop Music Festival, you know, nobody ever stays here during Memorial Day weekend. It's just like scary.
As much as the hotel people complained and the bar owners complained and stuff, the fact of the matter was, there was a lot of them coming in saying, hey, look, you know, this is a good event for the city. You just need to control it. That's your job as the police department. You need to make sure the streets are safe.
There's so many times during the year that people are just like, I don't want to be here. It's too ghetto, or it's too crazy, or it's too this or too that.
And I think this holds true with a lot of things, where a small group of people can spoil it for a lot of good people. You had a small element of bad people that were really taking advantage of the situation, and really spoiled it for the bigger masses. Really gave them the whole event kind of a bad name.
I think hip hop started off with a terrible beginning. We had the Atlanta Falcons came down, and literally they lost control of the streets.
You had a lot of businesses that were so scared, like I was saying, not only homes but businesses that would say, I'm closing up, I'm not opening up for the weekend. I'll see you Monday morning. You guys have a great day. I'm leaving on Friday, you know, and just wouldn't even be here. There was that kind of fear in some circles. This is going to be, no matter how much I make, it's not going to be enough. The potential for losing is much greater.
South Beach has about 22 police officers on a Saturday night, and they were quite overwhelmed. They actually called in the National Guard, and they shut down the beach. There's 3 or 4 killings. There was just a disaster, actually. It became quite a travesty. But then hip-hop came along again with P. Diddy. He did the Urban Fashion Week, Memorial Day weekend, and it's still continuing today.
Hip-hop had a big effect on South Beach. You know, once like there's a couple of events that the hip-hop people take over, and it becomes a big problem down here. But, you know, I'm sure that, you know, the councilman and the mayor and all those people are going to do something about it. And, you know, they just get wild. They wild out, and they think that, you know, they can do whatever. And, you know, it's not like that. You know, I mean, you can party, but you have to party with a conscience and know that you can't, just think like you're invincible and you're bulletproof and you're going to go out and do whatever you want. You got to have a limit.
My opinion, hip hop has ruined South Beach. It's not that the music is ruining, it's the promoters. They just brought in some really, some bad promoters, I think South Beach is comprised of locals. And when you start bringing people in that don't respect the beach, that don't love one another, I think that's when you draw a bad crowd. And unfortunately, I don't blame hip-hop, I blame the promoters that have been bringing people in that aren't beach people.
There was a great deal of people, particularly from Atlanta, and to a lesser degree, I think New York, but I think Atlanta, because it's in such close proximity and not a long drive from Miami, there was a huge draw from that area.
I was in business on South Beach when the first one happened, and it was bad. There was some real bad behavior and some real trouble.
And hip hop started out as a poor black kids type of music for them to express themselves in the inner cities and stuff like that, but it actually crossed over into the mainstream, and that's when it sort of took some sort of hold in South Beach, and 50 Cent and guys like that crossed it over to the mainstream were very successful with it, and that had its play in South Beach. I mean, it's had some, what should I say, they've had Memorial Day weekends where there's been some negative press.
Couldn't walk the streets anymore. I couldn't park my car anymore.
What effect did hip-hop have on South Beach? Well, I personally believe it destroyed South Beach. I believe that all that energy, all that fucking gangster shit.
Hip-hop in South Beach, I hate to generalize, but the festivals that happened a while ago, maybe 20 years ago with Peter Thomas, that started the hip-hop craze on the beach, on the streets, that wasn't a good thing. And it's been very difficult for the city of Miami Beach to lose that identity during the Memorial Day weekends. It gets out of hand, and it's very difficult to stop that now.
Memorial Day weekend, I actually played a role in the first one, myself and Louis Oliver.
I mean, you're looking at it now, hip-hop is pretty much taking over, as is the music of choice all over the world. I mean, they listening to hip-hop in Brazil and South Africa and Europe and Japan and, any continent on the face of this earth. Hip-hop is relevant, and it's definitely has exploded on South Beach. You go to any restaurant, lounge, club, you're going to hear it. I mean, it's in the cars, on the streets. You can't avoid it.
Louis did our Urban Fashion Week, and I was running Level nightclub where we had, R. Kelly, Mike Tyson, and a bevy, everybody from Diddy to Jennifer Lopez to Denzel Washington. Everybody was here.
Yeah, but you couldn't catch me dead on South Beach on Memorial Day or Labor Day.
Black America arrived, and we were not prepared. So we got a black eye as being a racist city.
In New York, we used to call it Bridge and Tunnel. Okay, well, here we call it Bridge and Causeway. It's kind of like they found out, and they started coming in droves.
And it brought these people from everywhere else that weren't hip to our community, that weren't hip to what we, okay, it's hip-hop weekend but it's white party next weekend. Are you down with that? And we used to be, home cooking and all of that hip-hop stuff, and NFA and all these parties, we were all on the same page. But it just, when it just got to that Black Beach thing or something, and it just got, intolerable for other people.
Peter Thomas brought How Can I Be Down In music conference. That was the first ethnic weekend they had, and he brought it in. The city sanctioned it. I'll never forget that night. We had Wu-Tang Clan. We had them all in there. I was the only white guy in the whole club. We were off to our best night ever. I had hired 35 security guards. The police made me hire 20 off-duty officers. The off-duty officers were across the street in the Bass Museum, afraid to even deal with the crowd.
Well, hip-hop, when it got here, it kind of changed everything. I don't know if to a good way, but it did.
They were trying to tear the doors down to the club, and I'm the only white guy there screaming at everybody to line up and stay. I'm not going to let anybody in my club. I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt, you know, and they're going to kick my ass, you know.
It opened it up to a new demographic, but in a bad way, in a very negative energy, and kind of destroyed, I don't want to say our innocence, but it took away something that was really kind of genuine and unique and innocent about it. I don't know.
Anyway, we're off to a record night. I'm selling champagne by the bucketful, garbage can full. 30 bottles. I went to the Forge. I went around every single club in town, bought all their champagne that night, and this is midnight. We're selling, and this is cash. This isn't, credit cards and things. Yeah. No plastic, okay? They're paying, back then, I don't know, $200 for a bottle of Cristal. I'm filling up garbage cans full of Cristal.
Hip-hop was pretty scary. It scared a lot of us away from South Beach, kept some of us around.
This night, you could feel it going, and it's coming to a crescendo. And all of a sudden, a dirty old bastard comes out, pulls out somebody else, dirty old bastards up there. The Wu-Tang Clan gets up there, and they have a shootout in the club. Nobody gets shot. The only people that get hit by bullets. But I learned afterwards, this is what they do on a regular night.
South Beach, especially on the big weekends here, Memorial Day and Labor Day weekend, have their problems with it and with a certain criminal element that moves in here. Unfortunately, the politicians did not get a grip on it yet.
The police then, of course, nobody got hurt in the club. The only person got hit by a bullet was one of my security guards that ricocheted off a roof.
Late 90s, early 2000s, hip-hop became very commercial and brought a different element, more of a commercial element that was less aware of the true essence of conscious hip-hop. So I think hip-hop's contributions came in two stages. There was one which was a conscious element, which is still represented through the different groups as the Universal Zulu Nation, which Africa Bambaataa set up a chapter here.
Party people, can yo get funky? So Sonic folks, can yo get funky? The Zulu Nation, can yo get funky? Yeah, just hit me. Just taste the funk and hit me. Just get on down and hit me. Bambaataa's getting so funky now, hit me. Yeah, just hit me. It's time to chase your dreams about the seats. Make your body sway, socialize. Get down, let your soul lead the way. Shake it now, go ladies. It's a living dream. Love, life, live. Come play the game. Our world is free. Do it to one but free.
It became more of a what the MTV generation later muted into, wearing your pants hanging down, brandishing a gun in front of people to prove a point that you're a gangster. To me, the real gangster is in the mind.
Well, let me say this. First, the positive aspect of Memorial Day is that there's been a lot of black tourists who've come to Miami Beach on Memorial Day who've fallen in love with our city and come back as tourists to visit us throughout the year. And so we've had a increased black tourist population year-round that's been very healthy for our city.
It's not just about Memorial Day weekend. It's about how that impacts us, socially, how it impacts us economically.
When hip-hop came in, there were people whom had not been exposed to or didn't really necessarily care for gay men or drag queens or people walking around feeling that they could be liberated and act any way without apologizing or having to it changed, and it didn't necessarily change for the better.
Memorial Day itself has obviously presented some policing challenges because of what's been a lawless element in a percentage of the crowd that has always threatened to ruin that weekend.
It's a very tough issue to talk about. I've gone to the city. I've spoken about it in Nightlife Task Force. We've had meetings in the city.
It's not an event that the city sponsors. The city doesn't give any special events permits, doesn't host any events. It's really generated by the private sector, and the city's in the position of having to try and police such a large influx of people, which it does in general quite well, but unfortunately there is a lawless element to the tourist population that comes that weekend, and we've had our challenges with it.
We're in a position in the city of Miami Beach where we just have to manage it properly and just take it year by year.
The city tries to do a better and better job each year in the policing aspect, and some years they've been more successful than others. Sometimes there have been criminal actions that have really been difficult for the city to control, and has given the Memorial Day weekend a black eye, and to some extent deservedly so.
And then Washington Avenue became sort of a nightmare at some point, and it was actually very dangerous.
It made me stay away from it a little bit more than I used to, and seems to be getting a bad rap in the media.
Unfortunately, it had really bad because it brought the worst people to South Beach. And hip-hop is really good, but the worst crowd has come down.
We have the Memorial Day weekend here, which has gotten out of control. We lose money. We don't make money on that week. We have to bring in every police force from outside of Miami Beach to come and police the city.
The department for the Memorial Day weekend, it's literally a countywide effort, bringing officers from all different agencies, get a significant assistance from the county, from the neighboring city of Miami, from small agencies.
There's always terrible crimes. There's murders. There's defecation in hotel lobbies. I mean, things that, you would never think about people doing. I mean, how do people do that? But they find ways.
Miami Beach officers work tremendous hours. It's literally all hands on deck throughout the entire county.
And most of the people that are residents here leave town that weekend.
The hip-hop or urban, that was disaster. That was like, what are we doing here? All these people came and they took over. Peeing everywhere, garbage everywhere.
You have the music conference, you have
the music conference.
Art Basel. There's some great things, but
yes.
It's just that
music conference, the best. Good energy, fun, happy people, no problem. Please, I wish all the weekends were like a music conference.
A lot of the upscale restaurants will either close or they just bite the bullet and know that they're not going to make any money.
The Amoco gas station at 14th and Collins. I mean, I went in there because the people were behind the bulletproof glass there that sell the gas, and it's a convenience store as well, and then all the shelves were cleared. I said, hey, have a good night here, No, they steal everything on the shelf.
I don't care if you're blue or
people
black.
People were apparently
or
rushing into convenience stores and grabbing cases of beer and just running back out.
The hip-hop scene was very homophobic, and that was really cut out all the drag queens, all the gay element, and that really changed the face of Miami Beach a lot. That was different music.
They were peeing in front of people's houses. They were, touching girls' ass and shouting faggot.
We were being yelled at and called fags.
It was really, they took over the city, they made a huge mess, and then the city didn't know what to do with it.
Because it was more dangerous crowd. You'd see guys with guns, it was very strange. It did a whole new scene.
Okay, when they first did Memorial Day, the first weekend Miami Beach had hosted Memorial Day, okay? I knew it was changing at the time. We were doing Crowbar with Michael Tron. We were leaving out of the club. We were forced to go back inside because we had been pelted so violently with rocks and bottles. We had to stay there until the morning.
And then you couldn't say anything because you were racist. I'm like, it's not about race, it's about you peeing in front of my house. Or
shooting somebody in front of David's Cafe.
Or shooting somebody.
We knew in that moment when we sat in there as hours went by and there was no police that was coming to our rescue. They knew, obviously, by the patrons, the attire of the individuals that were leaving the Crowbar, that was a gay function. So by the time as we had gotten paid and we were coming out, there was no way of us getting outside of the in any safe like pathway. It was dangerous.
Memorial Day weekend, it started becoming like hip hop festivals, and I love rap as much as the next nervous short white homosexual. But if I was gay and it was like, okay, we could go to South Beach and maybe get killed now, or we could just stay here in Fire Island.
The city, they couldn't say, okay, we're going to stop this now because you made a mess and we don't want this anymore.
And then the reports kept coming back about people being stabbed in cabs and all of that. And that's unheard of. It was unheard of at the time on Miami Beach.
Not only did drag queens stay away, but a lot of the locals stay away because it's unsafe.
They were afraid to be called racist. I'm like, what?
There have been shootings a couple blocks away. I mean, I feel uncomfortable being here.
All the locals are gone. No one even hangs out for that. Like even the restaurants, some of the restaurants are closed. The main people that work for the places, they're off, they're leaving. All the locals leave town for that. That threw everything for a loop because that wasn't a local scene, more that it was and I don't even want to say there was the people that came from up north, but just the people that came from, just to take advantage of all the the tourists that were here. And you got the people that are coming from Miami, the people that want to rob everybody.
And I think that the first one, they didn't know what they were going to deal with, so they lost control of the town. But even though there was a murder in the last one, I saw the video online. It's amazing. But I still think that they've turned it into an armed camp.
Dude, we wanted to get out of town because of that. It was like, all right, I don't think I ever stayed again, to be honest with you. I never stayed. I think last year was the first time I actually got stuck here because I was supposed to be somewhere else. But ever since that first time where they had all the riots, it's crazy. It was ridiculous. I couldn't believe they even had that. I don't think anybody was ready for that.
I had some guy rent out my driveway who was a security guy to pull in an RV to use as like his headquarters for the amount of security people paid him that weekend.
Yeah, that was a big wake-up call for us.
So it's like Mardi Gras, like anything else. The police are now ready for what's going to take place.
It wasn't really the hip hop parties that actually killed it. It was more, that the people that came from elsewhere, because we had the NFA parties, which were hip hop, which were awesome. We had the home cooking parties, which were great. It was just that gang thing that came with the bad tourists that came, because our local scene for the hip hop was not a problem. I mean, we had great parties; they were awesome, and everybody loved it.
That to me, that was our Paradise Lost. It was definitely what was coming up, what was going on.
I hate to say it, but you had just a bad group of people, and it had nothing to do with color. It just had to do with the people that came, and it took advantage of the easiness of the beach and how the people were, and people were just, the Miami Beach was safe.
The beach was inviting people that didn't belong there, and they knew they didn't belong there.
I mean, it still happens. On the weekends, it's dangerous. I mean, it's you get the people that come from inland, and they come from the bad neighborhoods, and they, the cops supposedly stop and they say they're profiling, but in reality, they're not. They need to keep that. They need to keep those kids that are coming in cars and have guns in their cars. They're looking for targets.
It was a tremendous amount of planning that went in before that event, and looking at ways that we could minimize the impact. And we brought even people in from the county, from their the Willie Sims,
Community Relations Board.
Community Relations Board. These people were in marked T-shirts, and they were civilians. They would walk through the crowds and try to minimize some of the problems that were occurring by having interaction between them and the crowd instead of the police having to get involved. And when they were unable to, or the problem escalated to a point where the police had to be involved, and that's what occurred. But there was a lot of tactics that were discussed at the police level on how to approach people, how to stop the music, how to go into areas that were overcrowded with people and try to address a problem without causing an all-out, riot.
Nobody really likes the police, but do we need them? Yeah, we sure do. That's for sure. We definitely need police, and it's showing that we actually do need police presence here, especially on those weekends.
In 2006, the peak of arrests for the weekend hit 1,200 arrests were made over the 4 days.
We have cops from all over Florida coming to help. because they're not sure what's going to happen.
The problem were pretty much the cruisers, the people on the street. They did not come to patronize the clubs. They came to arrive in their car, not spend a lot of money, not contribute to the economy, not contribute to any of the businesses.
There's stabbings, there's shootings. I mean, a couple of years ago, they had like a big shootout at Dave's Cafe, one of the little, Cuban coffee spots that everybody goes to. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, they had some crazy shootout.
And again, the lawless behavior was primarily on the streets, and the drugs and etc. that you could consume in your car that you couldn't get away with doing inside of a club.
Well, I think the biggest fear was violence. I mean, shootings and things of that type, particularly with the hip hoppers. It was, wasn't unusual for those types of people.
Well, the arrests increased as the resources of the police increased.
A lot of people drinking, that a small confrontation could escalate to something greater, and shots fired, and then no one knows where the shots are coming, then other people's pulling out their guns, and so those were our greatest fears, and we had a couple of those incidents.
The first year there weren't many arrests in spite of a tremendous amount of lawless behavior, because there just weren't enough officers to deal with it, and the prisoner processing wasn't up to speed. As the police department refined its effort, the largest single improvement was probably prisoner processing, up to and eventually including the county sending over buses from the correctional facilities and taking custody of the prisoners there on Miami Beach, and relieving the officers of the duty of transporting them over there, as the normal officers do not have the buses big enough to transport that many prisoners.
I think hip-hop ruined the nightclub industry in America. I think that before then, we used to build sets, build the energy for 15, 20 minutes, break it down, everyone could take a rest, get off the dance floor, and then we'd start building up again, 120 to 160. And then when you gotta drop straight down to like 60 and 70 BPM all night long, and all the lyrics are hate, no matter how good a lot of the hip hop music is, and how great it is to listen to, it's terrible for a dance floor. It's terrible for a big room, and I think it killed a lot of the big rooms.